Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sukhamatyantikam yadhyat buddhigrahyamatīndriyam vetti yatra na caivāyam sthitaschalati tattvataha yam labdhvā chāparam labham manyate nādhikam tataha yasmin sthito na dukkhena gurunapi vichalyate tam vidhya dukkha sanyoga viyogam yoga sangitam sanishchayena yoktavyaha yogo nirvinna chetasa sankalpa prabhavan kaman tyaktva sarvana sheshataha manah saivendriya gramam viniyamya samantataha shanai shanairuparame buddhya dhriti grihitaya atma samstham manah kritva na kinchidapi chintayet yato yato nischarati manaschanchalamasthiram tatastato niyam yaitat atmanyeva vasham nayet prashantamanasam yenam yoginam sukhamuttamam upaiti shantarajasam brahmabhutamakalmasham yunjannevam sadatmanam yogi vigatakalmashaha sukhena brahma samsparsham atyantam sukhamashnute sarvabhutastamatmanam sarvabhutani chatmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshanaha yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam chamayi pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sachame na pranashyati. Hari Om. Namaskaram to everyone. Ashama, you wanted to ask something, please?
Pranam Guruji.
Namaskar. Hari Om.
The other day I received the takeaways from last week's session. So regarding this point 3, it says tips to influence, control and govern the mind. So this point number 3 says, use persuasion, not force, to keep the mind on track. And the next point is point number 5. How do we punish the mind? I'm really intrigued because mind wanders.
We must ask Sitaramji. He has come with a bat. Huh? I don't know whom he's going to punish now.
No, I'm sitting outside. There's some mosquitoes around. But if I may just respond, Guruji, to what she asked. I don't think punish really means in the sense of corporeal punishment. I mean, it's not that you take a stick or what the some other religions practice as self-flagellation. I don't think that's the kind of physical punishment that is meant in that. It's more depriving yourself of something that you like, etc. That kind of punishment is what we are, I think, contemplating.
Yes, I think you're right. You're right on that. But she's referring to the last week we made some few tips or points how to influence the mind so that the mind can be controlled, or whether the mind can be starts heeding to you than you falling a prey to the mind. As we know, the mind is very strong and formidable. So we'll have to approach it different ways to deal with it. So just to get everybody on the same page, the 5 points I mentioned was, in order to bring in a level of control or concentration, or if you are meditating, the first thing we suggested is to sit in a conducive environment which can give you a certain association of thoughts. All right, point 1. Secondly, we said keep your eyes open and chant loudly. So you dismiss away any other thoughts which would become difficult to concentrate if you keep your eyes closed or you mentally try to chant the mantra Om. It becomes very difficult. So by keeping the eyes open and chanting loudly would enable concentration, and also keeping an idol or some kind of a symbol to help you as an aid. Also, many people use the Japamala, where you synchronize the chant of the mantra to the turning of the bead, the traditionally sought aid or a tool or a practice. So the thing is, yes, so you do that. So what should happen if you have synchronized the mind's chant to the turning of the bead? When the mind slips away, there should be a jerk in the turning of the bead. It is not that you're thinking suddenly of your family while meditating, and so even the beads are still turning. That means you are not synchronized. You're chanting the mantra Om, and suddenly the mind slips away to anything else. There should be a jerk. That's again a tool. And then we said you must try to persuade your mind. And did you say that you should not force the mind, Ashama? Did you say that?
That's what the point says.
You must ask with the person who wrote the points. Where is our Guru, Pinky Ma? She writes and I just say, okay, it goes out. And they just say, Guruji approved. I don't do anything there. Yes, Pinky Ma, boliye.
My understanding was that, the mind is, over so many years, we've all got used to just indulging the mind. We're forever appeasing the mind. And we have not practiced strengthening the intellect. So in the conflict between the two, the mind generally wins. But one thing is that it cannot be forced. Like a recalcitrant child, if you keep on holding it, it will sit for a second, and the minute your back is turned, it's again going to run away. So it is more through persuasion and explaining, and it's just not that. So that force, the reward or the punishment comes when the mind repeatedly goes back to, impulsively, when there's no tapaha, no austerity of speech, no austerity in behavior. Then somewhere if we withdraw, something that, okay, something that you like is going to be withdrawn. It's like one way of disciplining the mind, basically. So, of course, with study, yes, but it doesn't always work, because the study stays over here. It doesn't translate into speech and action. So we have to use other things. So
Yes.
when we say don't use force, means force will not work. It works. It's like you tell a child you have to study. They will sit with a book for 6 hours and nothing will enter here. So force really doesn't work. And the mind is childlike.
You're right. So the important point here, as Tinkema rightly explained, when you try to use force to control the mind, the psychology kicks in. The psychology is anything forced is never forceful. That's the law of life. You try to force something on anyone, you can't achieve that objective. The tendency, the psychology is exactly tends to the opposite. So by persuading, what you're trying to do is you're going along with the mind. You understand its reservations, you understand its weaknesses, you understand it has had a certain liking towards it. Now you realize the wrongdoing in it. You want to slowly draw the mind out of it. So it's not possible to change a course of an action abruptly. So you got to go along with it, try to win it, and then convince it to come along your way. Just this morning, there was a passing video which caught my attention in the social media. There was a guy who's trying to coax his pet dog to get into the bathtub for a bath. And that well-grown dog was not budging. It doesn't want to go into the tub for a bath. And the master is trying to coax it and, pat it and, draw it into the tub to give it a bath. And then suddenly he realizes that the dog likes peanut butter. So he brings the peanut butter to the dog, and the dog starts licking it. And slowly he draws and he puts peanut butter all around the bathtub. And the dog slowly goes into the bathtub and it's busy licking and the bath is done. So what you have tried to bribe the mind to get something done. So if your mind, as you know, we have to get up in the morning, you may like it or not, get up at Brahma Muhurtam to study the Shastras. You know that. And your mind does not cooperate. So how do I get it done? You tell, okay, if you get up this morning, you will get a chance to watch a movie. Or you will give it a sweet. Or something which you like, you give into it somewhere to just get the mind your way. So you're trying to bribe the mind to get a taste. You're going along with it. But you can't achieve that by force, because it's going to turn its back at you very soon, because it's a very formidable foe. Is exactly, you must visualize how would you deal with your child or grandchild. I'm saying grandchild because for you it will be appropriate to how, if you're a little one, how do you want to get the child your way? You will try to find different ways, and means you will not take a stick and try to adopt that kind of force to make the child listen or obey. But at times, extreme measures, you may really want to be strict. You may want to impose some discipline and say nothing doing. No, you will punish it. You didn't listen to me, I will not switch on the cartoon for you. The child will cry and cry and cry and make a hoo-ha about it, but you will say, no, it's a punishment. You didn't listen to me, you will not get the cartoon this evening. So the child will go through that evening without seeing cartoon, crying and grumbling. but it has not got. So the child starts associating that it is going through this because it didn't get that. So why are we trying to use different ways and means to control the mind? Fundamentally, we must understand. I think if this understanding is there, then you'll get it. The Shastras portray our own mind as a, okay, how do the Shastras portray the mind? The scriptures are portraying your mind in a particular way. If I can ask Venkatramanji.
Namaste.
Namaskaram. Good to have you, sir.
Yeah, this is my second class, so I'm just absorbing. But yeah, I mean, how do they portray? I would not have much, but yes, it is chanchal and then it is all over the place is what I can at least experience from my own personal distance. Yeah.
Yes, that is the nature of the mind. Yes, it vacillates and it is restless, chanchal and sthira. If the Shastras throughout, not just the Gita, throughout all religions, in fact, have a very powerful description of the mind. And they have never contradicted each other in their teachings. The truth is the same. So across the board. I fact to you, as you said, it's your second session, and I appreciate that. But your thinking is right, sir. And this is the nature of the mind. That's what the verse also is saying. No problem. Anybody else? Sudhakar Garu?
Are you Guru?
Yes, sir.
Instead of telling the punishment to the mind, I feel it will be appropriate to tame the mind. During the course of this discussion, I remember one of the movies, The Taming of the Shrew, written by Shakespeare, acted by Richard Burton, and what is that famous actress, who acted in Cleopatra?
Elizabeth Taylor.
Elizabeth Taylor. Beautiful movie. So
Yes.
when I am listening to the discussions going on right now, I am able to recollect that movie. It's one of the best of the movies I have seen, and both of them acted very nicely. So The Taming of the Shrew.
Nowadays, you are only connecting Vedanta through movies now. It started with Terminator, Judgment Day, and then other day, what movie we spoke about? Crudes. Where is Padmanima? Has she watched Crudes? What, Padmanima? Pathringla? Crudes Pakliya. Innama ninga vere? Such an important assignment I gave you.
No, not that. We didn't have power. It was on and off, like because of the rains.
Fair enough. But when everything gets stable, first thing you watch is Crudes.
Guruji, pardon me.
And then the third movie is Taming of the Shrew.
Taming of the Shrew.
Guruji, pardon me.
Yes, sir.
I've been watching these movies for the last 50 years, but the Vedanta is only for the last 2 years. I don't know where do I stand. But still this influence is more than that.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. So the question we are asking is, what is the description of the Shastras with reference to the mind? All right, no problem, sir. Gayatri, any idea?
Description is, first I thought Chanchala and Astira, but then it's also compared to a monkey, they say.
Compared to a monkey, right? That's very mild. Very powerful description of the mind. Very powerful. Almost you and I would disagree. Yes, Srinivas Reddy Garu.
Is it evil, Guruji?
Yes, sir?
Evil.
Evil.
Yes.
You are not far. In fact, the Shastras say, the Gita pounds this truth on us, that the mind is your own Shatrum. Your mind is your own enemy. You know, he says it is the Vairinam. He used the word Vairinam, means a foe. Shatrum means enemy. And then he qualifies it by saying it is Nitya Vairinam. It's a constant enemy. So, Christianity calls it as the Satan. Islam calls it as Shaitan. Hinduism calls it as the Asura. Buddhism calls it as Mara. So all religions, when they use the word Shaitan, Asura, Mara, or Satan, they are referring to the desire within. In fact, in the 3rd chapter, Lord Krishna says, Kamarupam Durasadam. He says, this enemy is in the form of your own desire. It's your own mind. So once you understand that the mind is a considerable enemy, or it's something which has to be controlled, it has to be governed, it has to be disciplined. Mind by itself is nothing wrong. But if you give a license to the mind and feed it and pamper it, that's when your mind causes extraordinary pain and it creates havoc, it destroys. So now what are we doing? It's like a thief. A stranger has come into a house and we're making him comfortable, we are feeding him, we're entertaining him. And actually this guy has an ulterior motive. He wants to completely destroy you, loot you. And that's what we are doing to the mind. So we must approach it in that sense that I am not going to give in to whatever my mind asks. Now, as Tinkima said, from our early age, we have given into the mind's demands and we have pampered it. Therefore, it's quite formidable. You want to force your ways, it will force its way back onto you. You will not be able to influence it. So you will have to find different ways and means to go along with it and slowly influence the mind. So this is what we said, Ashama. So is that okay?
It's okay. Yeah.
You're fine?
I understood the bhavana behind it. I just wanted to know how you actually punish or pamper the mind. I mean, I understood the basic principle.
Okay. But has it answered your question? Do you get the point?
To some extent, yes. Because yesterday, my grandson told me, he says, what I do is I have to play a FIFA game, but I have a few emails to answer first. So I tell my mind, okay, you'll get to play this only when you have finished your work at the desk. So okay. Probably that must be persuasion.
Yes, I said, you give a dog the peanut butter to give it a bath, something like that. So you give into it one side, you conquer it another. So things like that, yes. But approach it that I am not going to give in whatever my mind demands. You got to present it a challenge. The moment the mind says yes, you just start by saying no to it. The intellect, let it start saying no to it and see how your mind behaves. Don't just concede into it.
It pertains to certain activities that a mind wants to indulge in. And then you say, no, let me finish this first. So that's how you persuade, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Right. So that's what we saw in verse 26. All right. So let's move on. We'll take verse 27. Prashantamanasam hyenam yoginam sukhamuttamam upaiti shantarajasam Brahma bhutama kalmasham prashantamanasam henam yoginam sukhamuttamam upaiti shantarajasam Brahma bhutama kalmasham. Verily, supreme bliss comes to this yogi whose mind is peaceful, whose passion is quietened, who is sinless, and has become Brahman. Brahma bhutam. The term we recently elaborated in another context, another class, we learned about that becoming of Brahman, that experience of realization is becoming. So here he says, supreme bliss comes to this yogi. So almost he's coming to the end of preparation before you actually get into the meditation. So the supreme bliss, he says, is the bliss of realization, comes to this yogi. Comes to whom? Yes, ma. Comes to this yogi, Prashanta Manasam, who is perfectly, whose mind is perfectly tranquil. Prashanta Manasam, Shanta Rajasam. There is a subtle difference in the words. The word Shanta Rajasam is referring to the passion at the gross body level. The physical level, there is no passion. Prashanta Manasam, your mind is tranquil. There is no agitations at the mental level. Akalmasham, sinless, refers to the causal body level. So to a person who has transcended the imperfections at all three levels of the personality, it's not in part, in its entirety, he says. To such a person, supreme bliss comes to this sadhak, this practitioner. Akalmasham. The first he says, sinless. Sinless refers to the causal body, which is the vasanas. One who has eradicated all his vasanas. That's a beautiful, again, this is again absolute level. Whenever we talk of sin, remember the famous quotation. It's worthy to take a note and keep reminding yourself of that. Whenever we talk of sin, remember the famous saying, you hate the sin, but not the sinner. You hate the sin, but not the sinner. When you say hate the sin, but not the sinner, I may hate a particular trait or a quality of a person, but I don't have to denounce a person. I don't have to engender a hatred. I don't have to blemish the entire personality. So I can still get along with a person by only hating a quality, but not the personality. And many times we do this mistake of we define the person by the quality. So you must, perhaps when you look at a person, you can start looking at him as Vasantama. When you look at a person, how could you understand him in order to practice this quality? The quality of hating the sin, not the sinner. So when you look at a person, how could you look at him?
You're trying to accept his quality, it is his nature, and you see that the self in him also.
The possibility of the self comes in when you define him firstly as a mixture of good and bad qualities, isn't it? isn't it? Every individual has this good and bad, the best qualities and the worst qualities. So when a negative quality surfaces in a person, what you're trying to do? Let's say somebody insults you, willingly, unwillingly, knowingly, unknowingly, they insult you. So what could be your perception to that?
You should it should not affect you.
That's true, but how to ensure it doesn't affect?
That's what the Guruji, you just have to accept that it is his quality, his nature, and this too shall pass away. Or you just see the other good qualities in that person.
You are separating. See, you may hate a particular quality of a person. A person could be procrastinating. A person could be very arrogant. A person could be very spendthrift, very miserly, very, very miserly. But that person could have a very good heart. He's very pure, but by nature, he's very miserly. I can think of one or two people very, very close to me, and I have a very nice guru-shishya relationship, a friend relationship. But that person will not part a penny, will not part a penny. Impossible to get a penny out of him. But do I have to hate that person because of that miserly quality in him or her? I disassociate that person from that quality and identify with something else in him, isn't it? So the sin is the vasana. So if you start by approaching a person, so I'm only giving you a lead here. When you start relating to a person, first you see them as good and bad qualities. You start separating the bad and identify with the good. And then you start identifying, perhaps there is a personality without the quality. These are qualities, are vestures, are layers. The person as such is a good person. He has got a better nature. Why am I identifying with that particular quality and hating or liking? But if you have the capacity, you will wade through all these vestures and qualities and identify with the Atman or the self in that person. That requires a very high level of intellect, a very high level of sattvic nature to be able to see the Atman in the person. And that's what he says. Akalmasham. Here is someone who is completely freed from all his vasanas or sins. He's sinless. So the word sinless means one who is free from vasanas. There's no vasanas at all, absolute level. Prashant manasan. At the subtle body level, the mind and intellect is calm. Okay. Yes, Hariji?
If somebody insults me and if I don't accept it, you say that I have nothing to do with it. And it is okay. He wins over me only when I accept his insult. This is, I have elsewhere read about Buddha. People come and shout at him and
Sir, once in a while somebody shouts is okay. Every day your wife shouts at you, how will you escape that?
I get affected only when I give. I'm not ignoring what is being told, but it is okay. It is fine. If I get, how do I say? If I get involved, if I let my ego play a role there, then the entire thing is different. That is what I have elsewhere read about Buddha, that every day he was getting fired. And he said that this is, I am not going to accept this firing, you take it.
Yeah. So if you
It has
don't
got
receive it,
nothing to do with it. You keep on, you shout at me, but I am not going to accept it. I'm trying to get a practical, how do I mean, if I don't accept it, if I say, okay, fine. Not that I keep on thinking about it and, oh, I have been told like this and I am not, it is this, that, and all. I start analyzing the whole thing. Then my ego plays a role.
sir, you have answered yourself. Don't receive it. No? It is their privilege to have an opinion. It's my privilege to receive or not. It's like when you go to somebody's home and they entertain you and they feed you, they give you a buffet, a widespread. Just because they have served, will you take it all? Would you not take what appeals to your palate, what has to your liking, and take what is your capacity? You may say no to certain things. Just because it's offered, you don't receive everything and then go back home and say, yo, Appa, I'm not able to sleep. I'm not able to turn because I couldn't say no. Why did you take? It is very difficult to say no, thank you. Similarly, the same principle at the intellectual level. If somebody throws criticism at you, you can say no, thank you. You don't have to say vocally. If you mentally don't receive it, you have no problem. Why are you accepting it? So it is very easy said and done. But if you're able to detach yourself from it and say, I've got nothing to do with it, you carry on with life. But when you see a perception, when you see something wrong, we are only saying the quality is not the personality. So you're able to think beyond the quality. There are two ways of looking at the same thing. One thing is to say, I don't identify with the negativity in that person. Another thing is to separate that negativity or quality from that individuality of the person and start relating with the person. So it becomes a challenge if you have to deal with someone day in and day out. It could be a working colleague, it could be your business partner, it could be someone in your own family circle, it could be your spouse. You know, how do you deal with these situations? So you must try to bring in a sense of harmony in the relationship. And so these tools really help you to be able to strike a right chord and relate with the person. Like I took the example, I know of a person who's extremely miserly, but I still have a fondness for the person because I'm choosing not to identify with that quality. The other person has got a fascinating quality. Almost I want to emulate that quality in him. Is it not possible? Why should I snap a relationship with a person because of one quality or a few qualities? No. So you have a different perception. You know, in fact, as we not say that the entire world we are experiencing is nothing but a projection of our own mind. So when I look at a person, what is it that I'm projecting of that person? That's all I see. I don't see anything other than him. So just for example, you have a certain knowledge of me. You have a certain understanding of me, a certain image of me. Let's say somebody comes and chirps something and some information comes your way. Let's say not so good about me. All right. Whether it's a fact or it's a mere baseless rumor, immaterial, but something that comes your way. Now, how does that influence your perception of me? Are
To
you
be
able
objective.
to? Well, that's what it is. So if that influences your mind, then you have changed the personality itself. This is what is happening. My projection of the world is what is in my mind. So we are only trying to change the pattern of thoughts here so that the entire world changes, isn't it? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. You change, the world changes.
You change your perception, the world changes. You know, there's a beautiful saying. I'm upset not by the events. I'm upset not by the events around me, but the way I view them. There's so many things that's happening around me. I'm not upset because of the things that's happening around me. I'm upset because of the way I am viewing
How I
it,
perceive.
what I am making of it, how I perceive it. This is what we are saying. The world is your projection, it's your own mind. You understand? So you can demonize a saint, you can divinize a sinner. That is the power of your mind. Bhartima, you got that?
Yes, it is how we see the world, the people around us. It is our perception.
Not just people, everything around you. The entire world you're living in is nothing but it actually gets choreographed in your mind, and then it's all played out there, isn't it?
Yes.
So therefore, we have a choice of either seeing divinity in a person, divinizing it, or demonizing it. So if I'm criticizing something, it is in my mind. I have a choice to divinize it. It's all in my mind. So this is the sadhana we go through. This is the tapas we have to subject ourselves through so that we can bring about a paradigm shift in the way we look at life.
And I think this happens, I have done a little bit of pranic healing in that there is a thing that if you do not like few things about a person, and how do you improve that relation, or how do you help a person who is going through some suffering in life? So you start thinking of their positive attributes much more, vigorously, aggressively. You start thinking much more about their positive attributes, and you start feeling grateful for all those attributes. And you see that the person also starts feeling a little better.
Yeah. Invariably,
so where our
you're right.
focus, so if our focus is going like that for the world around us, for the people or the whole situation, so maybe that is also creates a shift.
Undeniably. So the whole world begins with the mind and the way we have rationalized those thoughts within.
Like for example, Swamiji, for Modi ji, we idolized him in the beginning. The person is the same, and we made him sit on a pedestal. Then we made him throw under the carpet and said absolutely no good. So the person is the same, but sometimes we make him an angel, and sometimes we say he's the most dominant, and he's a devil, and we have all done it. I mean, in some or the other ways, I have also done it. So, which is, I think, very, very wrong on my part.
Yeah, very true. All right. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Venkatramanji.
Yeah, so Guruji, I have a small confusion here. While I agree to all that what is being said, if a person is getting angry on me, and admittedly for the right reason. Probably there is a feedback which he is giving it to me. So I have to obviously work on the feedback. If there is a repetitive anger on every day on a particular issue, I can't say that, okay, now I'm absorbing, I don't bother and I don't care. So how do we do that? Because he might be getting angry for the right reason on
Fair
me.
enough. Yes.
So how do we, resolve this? Because sometimes they might feel that, he's just not taking the feedback and, he's saying, okay, I'm what I am and stuff like that. So that small bit of a confusion is there in my mind, while the rest of all is agreed fully. Yes.
Yeah. But you are talking from whose point of view? The person who is getting angry or who is?
Yeah, like a person who is getting angry on me, let us say, on a repeated.
Okay.
It is again, while we separate the sin from the sinner and all that aspects, there is something in me which I also have to correct for him not to react in that manner, if it is happening frequently.
Yes. So see, even applying this phrase, hate the sin, not the sinner. So it is your perception to someone who is getting angry at you. And you, as you qualified, perhaps it's happening more frequently. And perhaps you also understand that there could be an underlying reason that my actions is causing a certain annoyance to another person.
Exactly.
So I don't have to hate him for why he's being angry or short-tempered or he's not able to tolerate me. How do I rationalize it? I'm able to see what causes it in me.
And I have to work on it.
Correct. Because anger is only a modification of a unfulfilled desire or expectation.
Okay.
Now you can sit and argue and say, he is getting angry, it is his problem. And you say, I've got nothing to do with it. Yeah. But then the relationship snaps. It's a matter of time it snaps, isn't it? Yeah. But if you understand in what way can I harmonize with him? Is there a way? To what extent can I go to accommodate that person? To what extent can I see where my actions are going wrong? Or what's it? So you are very receptive. Rather than dismissing that act, you are able to, as you rightly said, you are receiving it as a feedback. You're constructive in your thought processes. But just because somebody's angry at you, it's not necessary that you got to hate that person. Especially in sport, when two teams and two countries are playing against each other at the top level, there's so much of emotion, there's so much of passion. You want to bring pride to your nation, you want to win the game. And those moments, emotion times overrules, and then you say a few things in the heat of the moment and things. But end of the game, you go and shake hand. End of the day, you go and sit across the table and catch a drink, and you wine or dine over a breakfast or dinner. You don't put all those emotions in hand because it's that moment of sport. But that sportsmanship is there. You shake hand after the game without any hard feeling or ill feeling, isn't it? So that kind of a spirit, a sportive spirit, if you bring to a life, I don't have to hate you for, sir, there's a beautiful saying here. There's so much of good in the worst of us. There's so much of bad in the best of us that it doesn't behove to talk about the rest of us. So if you even sit in comparison of myself with other person, there's so much of good in the worst of us. So if you take a devil personality and if you analyze his personality, there's some gems there as well. There's so much of bad in the best of us. The best amongst us in this classroom may have a glaring imperfection. So what are we talking about? It doesn't behove to talk about the rest of us. So therefore, sir, the beautiful quality we all got to practice, the quality we all got to practice is known as Satsang. The very seemingly innocuous, familiar word we all know. Like you say, oh, I sat through a Satsang. It's a good company. Now, how do I practice satsang from the moment you begin your day's activity till the very end? How do I maintain a good company throughout the day? You get what I'm saying, sir? In this admixture of good and bad, how do I maintain a satsang? Now, when you come to an environment like this, it's all very divinely. Everything is so positive, the right kind of people, the right inputs, the emotion, the thoughts, the vibe is all there for you to soak in. But not in the world out there. When you go out and meet people, there's different things out there. Now, how do I maintain a constant satsang? You can't say lock yourself in a temple, church, or a mosque throughout the day. You will go mad there also, isn't it? So how do you practice satsang? Venkatramanji, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got it.
You're taking a moment experience where somebody is angry at you. The different experiences, different people, different things is brought into the equation. Now, how do I maintain a satsang? Means the right company at the mental level. You get it? Let's ask anybody else. Shivaji rightly gives that beautiful analogy in answering it. He's saying the body rejects anything that is negative or something is not good. You know, the moment even the slightest of dust particles falls in your eye, instantly the eye starts watering to clear it off, to get it out of your system, isn't it? Instantaneously. It is not something as a part of me, it's something other than me, it flushes it out. The same principle at the higher level, the thought level. So the question is, how do we practice satsang? Ramji?
Namaste, Guruji.
Yes, sir.
So I think we all, because you said throughout the day and all 24 hours, we keep company only with ourselves for 24 hours. So I think it's important to maintain the mind in a agitation free and then in a peaceful state, so that you are in satsang with your own mind.
You've gone to a level which is difficult to attain, sir.
It's easy to say,
no.
but
No, see, the thing is, when you're interacting with, when your experiences are multifold, when the input necessarily is not favorable, how do you maintain a continuous satsang so that there is a harmony within? It's not that the stimuli is all the time favorable to you.
Yeah.
So in those multifold experiences, how do you maintain a constancy of right company? You get the questions.
I know. So that's why I said that the mind has to be kept away from these things. Like we say that it has to be unattached or detached from these impulses or these inputs, and it should remain true to the inner self and be at peace.
Now, see, if still going with the concept of qualities in a person, how do you answer the question?
So then mind should, like we discussed earlier, mind should keep the inputs which are coming because of the bad qualities in others, perceived bad qualities in others, you separate them out and then keep accepting others only as this is what we call in normal business terminology as positive thinking. So you stay positive and you are always looking at only the good side of the other person, and
Sir,
that reinforces.
I disagree with you. Positive thinking is not your corporate terminology. It is our Vedantic terminology. You people have borrowed it. Don't claim proprietary ownership and say it is our terminology.
No, in all our training programs.
What sort of no? You may train. That has nothing to do with me. This has existed before your training came into the picture.
I know,
This is Sanatana Dharma.
I know.
How can you say in corporate industry? I strongly differ with you.
Sure, sir. I am very happy that you are differing with me because I am accepting what you are saying.
See, this is satsang. You are maintaining, even though I'm being negative, disagreeing with you, you still seem to say I'm good in it. Right. On a lighter note, as you rightly said. So if I'm able to identify with the goodness in every individual, so it's like me constantly trying to separate the qualities in a person and identifying with the good quality in a person. So if I meet 10 different people, 10 different environments, 10 different experiences, I'm trying to see something good out there for me to identify with. I can choose to identify with some shortcoming there, the inefficiency of a person, or challenges in a situation, or drawbacks. And that becomes a negative stimuli, which is only going to agitate my mind, isn't it? So it's like if I start scratching my nails on a blackboard, or I take two rusted metal pieces and start creating a friction noise, the mere mention of it, what is that inner feel an annoying noise, isn't it? An irritable noise. So any wrong stimuli or receipt is only going to impact the state of my mind. So if I filter and choose what best I can give to my mind, so the mind is maintained in an equanimous state because the receipt, I've processed it and ensured that I identify only with the good. Therefore, I hate the sin, but not the sinner. So please don't claim proprietary over this, sir.
No IP rights. We are not claiming.
Harishji, quickly we have to do a lot of IP rights here. I'm in I'm very insecure realm now. You know, sir.
All IP is yours, sir. Guruji.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, nothing is mine, sir. It belongs to everybody. Right. Prashanta Manasam. You're tranquil, your mind and intellect is calm. And then he says, Shanta Rajasam, at the gross level, the physical level, the passion is calm. The passion is calm. The rush of the senses towards the sense objects is not there. There is no rush. The rajasic quality is not there. So at the causal level, your sins are eradicated. At the subtle level, your mind and intellect is calm. At the physical level, your passions are calm. Then he says, supreme bliss comes to this yogi. And that such a person has become Brahman. He becomes the reality. The example we give is like when you shoot a bullet, the trigger is pulled. When the bullet enters the, what is it? Enters let's say a banana tree, a trunk of a tree. It becomes one with it, isn't it? It's got into it. It's become one with it. It gets enmeshed and consumed by it. Similarly, when the river merges with the ocean, it becomes one with the ocean. Where is Sudhakarji? Sudhakarji, can you please sing that famous song? Bollywood song. I can't think of anybody who can sing but him. Okay.
Guruji, I did not hear properly.
You know that famous song of the river merging with the ocean? In that context, it may not be entirely that song, but in that context.
Okay. I don't remember exactly.
Okay. Tinkima will sing. She'll be the lead singer, sir.
Is it that Ore Tal Mile Nadi Ke Jal Mein?
Yes, yes.
Ore Tal Mile Nadi Ke Jal Mein, Nadi Mile Sagar Mein, Sagar Mile Kaun Se Jal Mein, Koi Jaane Na. Ore Tal Mile Nadi Ke Jal Mein.
Wonderful. So very soon we'll have a performance by Tinkima.
So you can hear Guruji, आप सुन सक रहे हैं ना मेरी आवाज? इस वक्त कुछ रियाज नहीं, कुछ भी नहीं, बस ध्यान
No. So once it merges with the ocean, where is the tal? Where is the river? There is no more river. It becomes one with the ocean. Okay. So, all right. So let's move on. 28. Yunjannevam sadatmanam yogi vigata kalmashaha sukhena brahma samsparsham atyantam sukhamashnute. Yunjannevam sadatmanam yogi vigata kalmashaha sukhena brahma samsparsham atyantam sukhamashnute. Thus the yogi, constantly practicing union with the self, freed from sin, easily attains the infinite bliss of contact with Brahman. Look at it, it puts it so, makes it sound so easy. Easily attains. Sukhena. Sukhena means easily. What does he attain? Sukham ashnute. He attains that sukham, the bliss. Sukhena Brahma samsparsham. Because of that infinite bliss of contact with Atman, he easily attains that state. Now, how is it that he easily attains that state? Rajima, how is it that this man, this yogi attains that state?
With constant practice, Guruji, all the time. That is the important words in the.
That's the key word for the text from the verse. Sada Atmanam. Sada is constantly. A familiar word, Ramji will say corporate word consistency. Correct, Ramji? How to maintain that sense of consistency, that sense of uncompromising, unprostituting, unwavering. In Sanskrit words, we call it as Shraddha. Shraddha is defined as an intellectual capacity. Shraddha is defined as an intellectual capacity to continue with an action until it takes you to the attainment of its goal. So an uncompromising, unprostituting, unwavering spirit you attach to an action until it takes you to the end. Doesn't matter whether it's a spiritual goal, whether it's a material goal, that capacity to bring in or inject that spirit of consistency to an action. And Sitaramji, that capacity to be consistent is what quality?
I'm not sure I can understand that. The capacity to consider is through discipline.
Now that's a colloquial way or a layman's way of putting discipline or indiscipline.
Yeah.
But what quality it is?
Satsang?
No. In fact, I just gave a cue as I was explaining. It's a certain capacity. When I define Shraddha, what do I define Shraddha as?
You said intellectual capacity.
Correct. Now I ask you, what is consistency? What quality it is?
Intellectual capacity, Shraddha?
It is an intellectual capacity. Now, do you know why do I say intellectual capacity?
Because that is the capacity which will define the amount of effort you can put in to attain to go consistently towards the goal. That defines the capacity.
Correct. Now, what is consistency? Consistency is to perform a repeated action until it takes you to the goal.
Exactly. Repeatedly over a period of time.
It is not that your action differs, but it's a repeated action, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, if you want to attain that capacity to inject consistency to an action, what is it that injects consistency to an action? Okay, Sitaramji, just hold on. Just think along with us. Let me get Venkatramanji here. Venkatramanji, if I can ask you, what is it that makes your action consistent? Could you please unmute yourself, please?
By demonstrating it every time you deal with somebody or, on your daily life.
You repeat an action. It's like a simple example could be exercise. You know the importance of exercise. You understand it. You want to do it. You need it also. Example. But in spite of all that, it is yet another thing to be consistent in that simple act of going through that exercise every day. You like it or not, isn't it? Whether I like it or not, whether I feel like doing it or not, but I got to repeat that action in order to taste benefit of health, isn't it?
Yes.
And that capacity to keep an action going is determined by the strength of your intellect.
Okay.
Now, what is the opposite of it?
Opposite can be, you can be very inconsistent in doing that because again, in a very colloquial way, no discipline or no determination to do that stuff.
Correct. Not that you don't understand the value of it, not that you don't understand the necessity of it in your life. You have all that, but there is a certain inconsistency that creeps in with reference to that performance of an action.
Exactly.
Now, if I ask you, sir, why does your action become inconsistent?
Because you start probably listening to that wavering mind and then it gets swayed into some other things.
You have got it. That is what I wanted, because I know first thing in the beginning of the class, I asked, you said Chanchala and Asthira. Are you able to connect these two?
Yes.
Because you have given into the mind. The mind's nature is it never can be at a place. It can never pursue a thing. It goes off. any chosen, even now in the classroom, it's possible your mind could have left the classroom anytime. So it is the very nature of the mind, it can never be consistent. So in order to achieve consistency, you need to engage your intellect, keep the mind on an action, and keep it repeating. Therefore, and it is not an easy thing to be consistent, because it depends on the capacity of your intellect. And since the mind is strong, invariably we keep giving into the mind. However, willingly I want to do it, but I'm unable to do it because my indisciplined mind draws me away from it. But anyone amongst us has that quality of being consistent. So if you bring in that quality of consistency, he says, you will attain the infinite state of bliss very easily. Very easy, man. So he puts in a condition there. Then you know how difficult it is to qualify for that condition, isn't it? Very, very interesting. But if you know the science behind it, how it all works is just amazing. Just so amazing. It's very, very scientific, very, very logical. I'll just give you, in the 18th chapter, I mentioned it in some context earlier. In the 18th chapter, he dissects action into 7 aspects. I'm just mentioning it so that you can fall back on it and understand how it all fits in. The 7 ingredients of action, he says. The first, he calls it as the action itself. The first is knowledge. The first is knowledge. Second is the action. The third is the actor. The fourth is the intellect. The fifth is consistency. The sixth is happiness. The seventh is renunciation. The 5 ingredients of an action, the 7 aspects of an action. Bhartima, you got it? The 7 aspects. Bolier, can you please repeat it?
7 ingredients of action. First is knowledge. Second is action. Third is actor.
Yes.
Fourth is intellect. Fifth is consistency. Sixth is happiness. Seventh is renunciation.
Perfect. And
but I do not understand the difference between the action and the actor part.
Okay. See, this appears in the 18th chapter, as I mentioned, of the Gita. And each of this can be divided into 3 cadres of Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic. So first is you need the knowledge of the action. So what kind of knowledge you have? What kind of thought pattern you have? Then the kind of action you choose. What kind of a personality you are? Actor is the person. What kind of a person are you? The fourth is the essential aspect of that actor is the intellect. A man without an intellect is like a vehicle without a steering. You have no choice. You can't steer your action. And what makes an action effective is consistency, as we said here. So he considers consistency as an aspect of action. It's not separate from action. It's a consistency is an ingredient of action. And then every action you're performing, knowingly or unknowingly, you're seeking. Bhartima, what are you doing it for?
Yeah, so you want to do it for happiness.
For happiness. What kind of happiness are you seeking? Sattvic happiness, Rajasic happiness, Tamasic happiness. And then he says that happiness you seek is only attained through tyaga, renunciation. And then again he qualifies what kind of renunciation are you practicing? Sattvic, rajasic, tamasic. So you divide 7 aspects, multiply them by 3 times, you get 21 aspects of your own action in your personality. It is a fascinating study. Perhaps someday we'll offer this itself as a standalone program, where you dissect it in such detail, you have an insight into all the different elements which constitute an action. But in the context, what brings about the fruit, what gets you to the fruit is not mere action, but consistent action. If I perform an action inconsistently, there's no result, isn't it? There's no fruit. So in order to get to the fruit, you need to bring in consistency. And in order to bring in consistency, you need an intellect. And in order to develop the intellect, you need this wisdom. You want to run your business efficiently, you need this wisdom. You got to realize that. Unless until I bring in a sense of an inner management into my own thoughts, if I manage my thoughts well, if I am able to bring that, command myself from inward out, then my actions become consistent. And it is not an inborn quality. You must understand that. It is something you cultivated through effort. Fatima, you were wanting to ask something? All okay?
In renunciation, I wanted to ask, you said everything has the tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic the quality. So tamasic renunciation means sort of leaving like non-vegetarian food and all that, or no? Renunciation, how is it different? Tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic.
I will give you in 3 lines each of it. And then perhaps the exact reference to these verses, I think we did share at some time, Rajima. Get a hold of that if we can and reshare it with everyone. Bhartima, try to be a part of this group so information reaches you out. If you can get connected, connect with Rajima. Okay.
Okay.
Now, sattvic renunciation. Okay, let's define tamasic renunciation. Tamasic renunciation, he defines it as abandonment of an action arising out of ignorance. He says abandoning action out of ignorance. Rajasic renunciation, I repeat, tamasic renunciation is abandoning action out of ignorance. Rajasic renunciation is abandoning action because of a pain or fear. There's a certain amount of pain you associate with an action. Oh, am I to go climb so many steps to see the cave? No, I don't want to cave. It's okay. It's nice. You have gone on a tourist spot. You want to go and see and explore. And it has got 40, 50 steps and elevated steps, such an angle. You say, no, I am not interested to climb 50 steps. But the real thing is up in the above there. You will justify and say, no, I am happy from here. Why are you renouncing it? Because there's a pain associated with to get that fruit. So you're given up something because of a pain. But if there's an easy way out, you will want it. So renouncing something because of a fear associated with it is called rajasic renunciation. And interestingly, sattvic renunciation, he defines it as performance of action. Sattvic renunciation, he defines it as performance of action renouncing the fruits of your action. I'm renouncing the non-essentials of action, but I'm performing action. So the true spirit of renunciation is action should never stop. You are active, you are dynamic, you're productive, you're industrious. You got to be. You're able, you're efficient. But what you renounced is my ego, my anxiety, my worries, the fruits, my complexes. All of that I've renounced. But what is going on? My action is going on, constantly acting. And outstanding. Sadly, the Shastras is not explained. So we have not understood the way it should be understood. We think getting into Vedanta is to put on a robe and renouncing doing things. No, it's not renouncing doing things. In fact, you can wear a three-piece suit, go out doing a business, you can be a greatest Mahatma. It's not just as necessary in a robe or a garb, or it's not determined by your place or position. You can be a sportsman and you can be practicing sattvic renunciation. You can be a politician and you can be practicing sattvic renunciation. You can be an entrepreneur and practice the sattvic renunciation, where you are doing your dharma, your duty, but renouncing the fruit of action. So as I said, it's a beautiful concept when you take wholesomely the 7 ingredients. It's going to be a lot of study trying to carefully dissect it. In fact, I've just recently, when I say recently, a couple of months ago, I've gone through this chapter with students in Malaysia, and I've actually told someone to, in fact, I've told Ushama to actually compile all these section of verses, the 21 verses to compile. So she's actually sent me a first script of the transcript. So if I okayed it, so someone is working on it to actually bring out the material. And once it's there, perhaps it can come out in some kind of a booklet or some kind of a material. But there's a lot of work that's needed, but it's all there. What I'm saying is we need to understand these elements and how they fit into action. Okay. Right. And lastly, Ramji is asking, sir, the sin freed from sin, as we understand, the more extroverted you are, the more agitated you are. The more introverted one is, the less agitation. So the moment you turn towards the self, you will find the agitation ceases. Like the more you turn introverted, you find yourself relatively more peaceful and calm. So since this seeker has constantly turned his attention towards the self, he is freed from mental agitations. That's how you must interpret the word sin here. Vigata kalmashaha. Okay. And when he says easily attains, Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says, how long does it take for a needle to penetrate a rose petal? That long it will take to attain realization. Provided you have done all the tapas. So it's subjective. If you have done it, it's instantaneous. If you have not done it, aneka janma. All right. There's something I would want to explain here in terms of the time frame. So I'll come back next week into this verse and I'll explain that before we move on. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.